Hi everyone, welcome back to Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Today I'm going to be wrapping up the Christie's Missing Readathon. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. My name's Alice and I have way too many books. And in this video I'm going to be wrapping up the books I've read so far in December, which are mostly for the Christie's Missing Readathon, which was running from the 3rd to the 14th of December, following the same 11 days that Agatha Christie went missing for back in the 1920s. And this readathon was hosted by 4 wonderful channels: Say Kevvie, Rachael Fryman, Naomi's Bookshelf and Berna's Bookish Adventures. And if you'd like to check out those 4 channels, you definitely should, and they will be linked in the description box down below. It's been a fantastic readathon. I've really enjoyed it in its 2nd year, and that competitive edge of reading books to contribute points to your team, my team was Team Poirot of course, has been really fun. So thank you to all 4 of those wonderful hosts for hosting this great readathon. I've really loved reading some mysteries, reading some Agatha Christie related stuff that I haven't read before. I've got 4 books and a short story to talk about for the readathon. I've also got 2 books that I've recently finished that were not for this readathon, and we'll have a little talk at the end about what I'm currently reading. So the first thing I read for Christie's Missing Readathon, for prompt number 1, Closed Circle Mystery, I read Agatha Christie's most famous play, The Mousetrap. And I'm planning to make a separate video about The Mousetrap and the recent film See How They Run. So I will talk about The Mousetrap itself further in a further video. Towards the end of the readathon, I also went back and read the other 3 plays that were in this collection, The Mousetrap and Selected Plays, which were And Then There Were None, Appointment with Death and The Hollow. Now, I read a really excellent Hercule Poirot book in the month of November that was non-fiction about the books, and I have a separate review on that. If you want to check that out, I'll link it in the description down below. It explained a fact that I already slightly knew, which was that Christie quite frequently rewrote Poirot books as plays not featuring Poirot, and both Appointment with Death and The Hollow were examples of those. And they were really interesting to read for that reason, and also because I hadn't revisited either of these books in a long time, so I couldn't remember who had done the murders, so I was able to enjoy them afresh. And Then There Were None, I read the book of either at the beginning of this year or the end of last year. I think it might have been January this year. I have also seen this play performed as, and that is also true for The Mousetrap. I've been to see both of those, so I knew both of these plays. It was really enjoyable to read the play script knowing that I had seen them on stage. But interestingly, the play script of And Then There Were None, it changes the ending of the book, which I knew, and the ending of the play that I watched, the play version I watched, had the more in keeping with the original ending, not the ending that was rewritten when Christie turned it into a play. So yeah, this was a really good collection. I don't have much Christie left to read. Really, of Christie's entire works, I now only have left 1 more volume of plays, I believe, and 3 more Mary Westmacott novels. So I'm getting very low on Agatha Christie's that I've not read before. But yeah, this was an enjoyable read. I think with The Mousetrap, you would definitely be better off watching the play before reading the play, because otherwise you would get spoilers, and I think it's a really good play to not be spoiled on. For the prompt of a Christie short story, and also covering the prompt of a Christie featuring your detective, because I didn't end up getting time to reread The Murder of Roger Ackroyd, so I'll save that for another time. Answering those 2 prompts, I read the short story The Adventure of the Christmas Pudding. This is quite a fun Christmas mystery. It's a longer one of Agatha Christie's short stories, but I think it's a really good length. It gets in lots of good things, and it's a really good example of a Poirot short story that I think is very satisfying. So yeah, if you're looking for something Christmassy to read with a bit of Hercule Poirot in it, then this is a good short story for you. So that was about 80 pages long. Really, really enjoyed that. That was my second time reading it. A great little mystery. Also, on audiobook, I listened to Daisy Darker by Alice Feeney. This was my first Alice Feeney novel, and the reason I really wanted to get to Daisy Darker first of Alice Feeney's books, even though it's her most recent, was because this is a book paying homage to And Then There Were None. I thought it was a really interesting take on that book. So there's two things I would really consider about Daisy Darker. One was that it had packed in quite a lot of little Agatha Christie Easter eggs, which as a big Agatha Christie fan who has read most of her work, I really did appreciate those. It's also split between that and sort of Daisy Darker, the narrator's backstory that she's telling you, her childhood story. And I felt that, unfortunately, the constant Christie references just highlighted to me that this was not Christie. And I think that's fine, because I think obviously nobody else does live up to Agatha Christie in terms of mysteries. And a homage is just that, a homage. It was fine. I thought it was a good book. It has a big twist. And I thought that the mystery element was well done. Didn't so much enjoy all the backstory, but it was well done. I was definitely tricked. I was fully taken for a ride. So well done, Alice Feeney. And I would read Alice Feeney again, although I didn't particularly enjoy the style of this, but I feel that it was in first person from Daisy Darker's perspective, and because of that, I'm definitely going to give Alice Feeney another chance, because I don't know if this is her regular style of writing or not. If you've read Daisy Darker and you've read other Alice Feeney books, do comment down below and let me know how similar they are, because I'd love to know before I embark on reading another one. Daisy Darker answered the prompt of a retelling of Christie, and I listened to Daisy Darker on audio, if I didn't already say that. And it was a good audiobook. I thought it was fine. Next up, I read Strong Poison by Dorothy L. Sayers, a Lord Peter Wimsey mystery. And I read this with the lovely Jessica. This was my fourth Lord Peter Wimsey mystery. It's the first one I've read that has the character of Harriet Vane in it. And I did think that this was a vast improvement on the first three books. I thought this was much better, much more interesting. There's a lot of poisoning in this. I do find Dorothy L. Sayers' books a lot slower to read than an Agatha Christie, for example. They were contemporaries, and Dorothy L. Sayers has more of a difficult style for me to break into personally. But I do enjoy them. I just find them slower moving, more difficult to get into, but once I'm into them, I really do enjoy them. Yeah, I thought this was a good mystery. It had a really strong plot, and quite an unbreakable case really was being attempted to be solved in this. And I read that for the prompt of a Golden Age author. Another book that I read for the prompt of a book about Christie was Unfinished Portrait by Agatha Christie, writing as Mary Westmacott. So this is one of Agatha Christie's 5 books she wrote under a pseudonym of Mary Westmacott, and this one is said to be the most autobiographical of the bunch. So I've previously read The Rose and the Yew Tree, which was nothing to do with Agatha Christie's life. I've read Giant's Bread, which definitely had a lot of elements of Agatha Christie's childhood used in the childhood of one of the characters. And this one is so closely similar to Agatha Christie's autobiography that I think definitely if her autobiography had come out before this book, she definitely would have been found out as the person masquerading as Mary Westmacott, because they are so similar, really similar. And I think my enjoyment of this book was definitely hampered by having read Agatha Christie's autobiography recently enough that this was too familiar for me. But once it gets further into the story, the main character Celia's story is very much Agatha Christie's story of her childhood, of her growing up, of her marriage. It became very interesting once it came to the point where Celia's marriage was breaking down and her mother had died, and this is directly from Christie's life. These things all happened leading up to her disappearance, and I thought it was really interesting the way she dealt with that sort of chapter in her life through a fictional lens. And it's easy to see that her comments afterwards that she had amnesia could well be true, and also it very much comes across that she was sort of emotionally having a breakdown at a very, very sad time for her. I did really enjoy comparing this fictional character to what I knew from Agatha Christie's autobiography, but I did find the book, most of the book, a little bit slow because I had already read that autobiography and there is a lot of overlap and similarity. But I did kind of enjoy comparing the two because I am very interested in Agatha Christie, so obviously that was a bonus for me. Those are all the books that I read for Christie's Missing readathon. Really, really enjoyed reading those and sort of immersing myself in Agatha Christie related stuff. I also have read this month The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro. This was a buddy read with Fox Folios, and yeah, I really, really enjoyed reading this together. We had an interesting time with the book. It's very, very different to the other two Kazuo Ishiguro books that I have read, but very much explores some similar themes about reality and memory and that sort of thing. And this one is set sort of in kind of Saxon times, post-Arthurian King Arthur times in ancient Britain, and it follows a couple, Axel and Beatrice, who are going on a sort of quest type journey to their son's village, and it also takes in some other characters who they meet along the way, who I won't spoil who they are. My enjoyment of the book was hugely increased by talking about this book because I was able to notice and comprehend a lot of things that I probably wouldn't have noticed and comprehended on my own. So yeah, buddy reading this was really, really worthwhile. But I did really, really enjoy this story, and it's very, very gripping. It's completely different to anything else that I've read. Emotionally, it did grab me, and I thought that this was a great read. So yeah, The Buried Giant by Kazuo Ishiguro was a good read this month. So the last book that I have to talk about that I've finished already this month, I actually finished today, which was The Art of Murder by Michael White. This was on my These Books Will Self-Destruct in 12 Months list because I've had it for a very, very long time, and I think I bought it for 20p in a library book sale. So it's a very sort of well-used, well-loved copy. I finally got round to this. It's been in several TBRs over the last year and a half, and this one follows Detective Chief Inspector Pendragon as he investigates some murders that are sort of staged to look like modern art, and they are very gruesome and disgusting. There's also a thread running through this following a character who is seemingly Jack the Ripper in the sort of 1800s in Whitechapel, and of course that part is incredibly disturbing and gory as well. But if you like disturbing, gory, slightly gruesome crime books, then this was a good read. Didn't think it was like the world's best written book, but I thought it was well done. I did actually solve this one. I did work out who done it quite a long way from the end, and I thought, no, you won't have worked out who done it because you never work out who done it. You're bound to be wrong, but I was right. So I don't know whether that makes it a worse book or a better book. It wasn't a book that completely blew me away, but I was proud of myself for solving this case a long time before the detective did, so yay. But yeah, if you don't like brutal crime books, this isn't the book for you, but if you do, you may enjoy this. What I'm currently reading at the moment is I've got a little tiny book that the lovely Gemma from Gemma Books sent me, and this actually arrived in the post today and I'm halfway through it. And this is Heatwave by Victor Jestin, translated by Sam Taylor. This is translated from the French. I'm reading this for the World Cup readathon because France is now my team because they knocked out England. I will probably count the Dorothy L. Sayers as my English book, and this is now going to be my French book. I was going to read a French crime book that I have on my shelf, but this is much shorter at 100 pages, so hopefully I'll have time to finish this before the final. And if France win in the final, that will be the end of my reading for the World Cup readathon. If France lose in the final, I will be looking for recommendations for Argentinian books to read. So let me know any that you've enjoyed in the comments down below, just in case. And I'm currently listening to The Safe House by Nicci French. I have got 5 Nicci French books left to read before their latest book comes out in March. The 5 I've got left, there are 3 that are their really oldest books pretty much, and 2 I've got on my shelf up here, which are slightly more recent. So yeah, Nicci French are an absolute favourite author of mine, and I wanted to talk about them because last week I had a really happy afternoon where I got to meet Nicci French. There was an author talk from Nicci French at my local library last week, and it was really exciting that this was happening because I don't think I've ever been to an author talk at my local library, and it was Nicci French, who are one of my favourite crime thriller, psychological thriller authors. They're the authors of the Frida Klein series, which I've absolutely loved and I do want to make a video about, but I think I want to reread it first. They're also the author of several psychological thrillers that are standalone, also that I have really enjoyed. One of those I reviewed earlier in the year, The Unheard, and I'll link the review in the description down below if you haven't seen that, because that is a book I really enjoyed. So Nicci French, as you can see from this author photo, are a husband and wife writing team, Nikki Gerard and Sean French, and it was so interesting to meet them. So we went to this talk in the library. The talk was actually filmed for YouTube, but it isn't actually out on the library YouTube yet, so we'll look forward to re-watching that and revisiting the talk when I get a chance, because they were really interesting people to meet. So Nikki and Sean took us through sort of how they met, how they became the crime writing author Nicci French, why they picked Nicci French as their pseudonym, how they write their books together. It was just absolutely fascinating. We were allowed to ask questions at the end, and I did get to ask them a question which was really brilliant. I went with my mum as well. She got to ask them a question too. She's a huge fan of Nicci French, especially the Frida Klein series, and she asked them a question about the Frida Klein series, which was brilliant. Absolutely fascinating afternoon that we spent with Nikki and Sean, and they are absolutely lovely people. So nice to meet them, so interesting to get to talk to them, and they also, just to make the afternoon even more exciting, they also signed my copy of The Unheard. So yeah, I think Nikki wrote in mine first, and she wrote, "To Alice, really lovely to meet you. All our very best wishes." And then they've both signed it. I had an absolutely wonderful time at the library. I always have a good time at the library because I love the library, but I had an even better time at the library because it was so interesting hearing everything that they had to say, and I am so fascinated by their writing process. As a husband and wife, I find it so interesting. So that was just something that I thought I would tell you about that has happened in December that was really bookish and exciting. That's all of the books that I have to wrap up. And oh yeah, and the point of mentioning Nicci French was I'm currently listening to The Safe House by Nicci French, which I think was their second novel that they wrote together. Really enjoying it. I'm about 3 hours from the end, so that explains why I went on to listening to Nicci French instead of listening to something that was on my TBR before, because I just needed to read one of their books after hearing their wonderful talk. If you've enjoyed this video today, please do give it a like. Please do consider subscribing if you haven't already. I'd love it if you comment down below and let me know what you thought of any of these books, or have you had a favourite book you've read in December so far. If you were joining in with Christie's Missing, let me know in the comments what was your favourite book you read for that. And and I will hope to see you all again soon for another video all about books here on Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. Bye for now.